What's up, boys? So I want to show you guys exactly how you can double your arm size in the next year. This was February of 2025, and this was February of 2026. And I did this completely naturally, doubled my arm size, slapped on a fuck ton of muscle, and I want to show you boys exactly how you can do it as well. Now, the original reason why I wanted to build a big set of arms is because they were my biggest weakness for so many years. Like right here, I kind of had like some decent shoulders, I had a decent chest. Everything was good except for my arms because I neglected them so much, and it just made me look like I didn't lift. Like I basically lived in the gym up until this point. I was going like 5 to 6 days per week, but you just couldn't fucking see it on me because I had no arms. And there is nothing that will make your physique look bigger and better than some big fucking arms. So I want to show you guys exactly how you can like create this own transformation for yourself, like completely naturally. I didn't take any like peptides or anything like that. None of that bullshit. Did it completely naturally. Slapped on a lot of mass. You know, it is also my 4th year of lifting. This is my physique after 3 years. This is after 4 years. So I basically got my newbie gains back. Use that to double my arm size. So here's exactly how you can do it yourself. Now, first things first, we do need to go through some fundamentals because you do need a foundation to create this transformation. If I gave you a workout plan right now and told you, okay, do these exercises, this is how you need to eat, the thing is, you'd probably fall off after a couple weeks and you wouldn't solve the root of the issue. The root of the issue is always going to be you, and you need to understand that you're going to be your own worst enemy. Your physique is never going to be better than your personal development. Every problem with consistency is simply a manifestation of your personal development. I remember when I was stuck at this physique right here, I was not a very disciplined person. I was not very hardworking at all. I kind of slacked in everything. I didn't even wake up early. Like, I couldn't even get myself to get out of bed before like 7:30, 8 every single day. I just woke up feeling very lazy, like I didn't really want to get after it, versus like the version of me now where, you know, I'm a lot more disciplined. I'm actually able to wake up earlier. I have like a decent level of self-development. Like I've made a lot of growth, right? And that simply wasn't just the muscle. The muscle is simply just a byproduct of it. It is just a symptom of my mind. So something you need to understand is the world mirror. The mirror is the external world and everything the other people can see. So this is your reflection right here, right? And the man right here, you know, fixing his tie and everything like that, this is your internal state. Now, the thing that most people are going to try and do is that they're going to try and fix their life overnight. They're going to try and get some big fucking arms overnight and just like change what they see here in the mirror, right? Figuratively. They're going to try and change the external state. So, you know, they'll start fucking drawing on the mirror. They'll start doing anything that they fucking can to change this right here. When in reality, no matter how hard you try and change your reflection, if you don't change the thing that's actually creating the reflection, yourself, your internal state, there is going to be no change. This will look the same no matter how much you try and change it. No matter how much you draw on the mirror, no matter how much you cover it up or whatever you fucking do to the mirror, your reflection will not change until you move, right? And this is the way that most people, they do try and go about it. They try and muscle it. They try and get the new workout plan. They try and get the new diet. All these new fucking things that should have worked. Nothing changes. Why? It's because of them. They are the root of the problem. They are the root cause of why it doesn't work. Like, it has never, ever been easier to, like, you know, put on a good amount of muscle. There is so much information out there in the world. Like, you have ChatGPT. You've got some of the smartest scientists putting out YouTube videos for free on how you can build muscle. Why is the majority of the human population still obese? Why are the majority of people still stagnant after years of lifting? Well, it's because they didn't change the most important thing, and that was them. They just threw all the new workout plans. They threw all the new diet plans at the mirror and thought it would change them. They tried to draw as much as they could on the mirror, and it didn't change anything. The thing is, you can't change the reflection. You have to change the man that you are. See, back in February of 2021, like, dude, I was a fucking loser. I had the identity of a loser. My physique was like, you know, it was all right. If I put a shirt on, you can never tell that I lifted, right? But because I was a loser, I wasn't able to really like put on any more muscle. I spent the majority of my days just playing like Clash Royale, right? January of 2025, I moved from the United States to Denmark, where I am currently residing. And I had like a month where I wasn't employed yet. You know, I was just kind of living off savings. And it was genuinely probably one of the worst months of my life. I'd just broken up with my girlfriend to move to Denmark. I left behind everyone that I knew and loved. And you know what I did? I tried to cope with the pain by just playing more Clash Royale, right? I coped with the pain by just spending so much time on Instagram. This, by the way, this is a screenshot from when I was actually working, right? Before this, I was probably spending 8 hours a day on Instagram telling myself, I'm going to fix my life tomorrow. I'm going to fix my physique tomorrow. But every single time that I changed, I just couldn't stay consistent. I tried a new workout split. I'd kind of like stick to it, but I'd half-ass it. I wouldn't train hard enough. I'd show up to the gym, but I wouldn't go there with intensity. And that was the reason why I couldn't change anything, is because of my identity. I was stuck with this physique. And I remember I took this picture right here, I sent it to a girl, she was coming over. I was also a degenerate at this time, right? Because I was just trying to fucking fill this void inside of me by just running away from all the pain that I felt, just using the vices, using everything that I could to escape. And that version of me who was so fucking addicted to the vices, who was addicted to fucking Clash Royale, playing video games, who was addicted to Instagram, who was addicted to lust, he would never ever be able to change, right? His physique would look like this for the rest of his life because he's not willing to put in the necessary amounts of effort. Either, if he could, it would only be for a couple days, and then he'd end up falling off and relapsing. This version of me would never have been able to build the physique. But once I shifted my identity, the habits that were necessary for my physique to grow followed. Because here's the thing. No, your goals don't fucking matter if you don't have the habits in place to help you change, right? The most important thing is that you can detach from the actual goal. Through this entire transformation, I never focused on I want to be 200 pounds and I want to be lean. I still want to have a six-pack when I'm 200 pounds, right? I never focused on that. I just focused on my daily input and how much I could do every single day to make sure that I move towards my goals, right? I detached from the outcomes. And having that identity shift where all I focus on is what is the best thing I can do today? Instead of thinking about these big things that I want to accomplish in 6 to 12 months of just completely changing my physique, I just thought, I'm going to take it one day at a time. I'm just not going to give a shit about my goal, but have the identity and do the actions of someone who would get it. And I knew eventually with time, it was just going to come. And now, this was a video from a couple weeks ago on Instagram. Someone thought I was taking roids. My arms have grown a lot. My physique is way fucking better than it used to be. Right? When I had this identity, when I was this kind of person, I was never going to be able to change. Everything is going to rely on your personal development, right? It is going to be the foundation that everything else here is built upon. For most people, they never really have an information problem. The main thing that they have is a consistency problem. And that all stems from your personal development, that stems from your identity, and all sorts of things like that. So genuinely, if that is your biggest problem, that is what you need to focus on right now. Because everything I'm going to say in this video, all the information I'm going to give you, the frequency, all the details of everything, it's not going to matter if you're not able to stay consistent with it, right? So that's the first thing that you need to commit to, is that you need to commit to becoming this new version of yourself, of adopting this new identity so you can actually reap the rewards of the work that you're going to put in. Because I'm going to be honest with you, if you half-ass it, this program is not going to do shit for you. All the stuff I'm going to say in this video might as well be useless. You need full commitment. You need to shift that identity in yourself and step into being that new person. Right? So to develop myself, I had to do early wake-ups. I had to get myself to wake up earlier and earlier and earlier. At some point, I was getting up at 4:30 every single day, right? Now I've pushed that back to 6 because I've understood that, sleep is still incredibly important no matter what, right? But I needed that phase where I was just waking up brutally early just to push myself through those mornings that suck. I had to hold myself to a higher standard. I had to train harder. I had to push myself to failure on just about every single set. I had to quit video games. I had to quit some of these vices that were really holding me back because I knew the version of me that was going to achieve what I wanted to achieve wouldn't be doing these things. So that's the first thing that you need to understand, is that you need to shift your identity. Otherwise, all of this is impossible. And that's the first thing that I did, was I just started living in alignment with the person that I wanted to become. Because again, with fitness, it is so much deeper than just here's what you need to do, X, Y, and Z. Bro, it has never been fucking easier to get in great shape because of all the information out there. But the reason why global health is at an all-time low, the reason why every time you go into a Walmart and you look around and you barely see anyone that's just looks healthy, is because everyone has an implementation problem. They all have an identity problem, right? you're going to act in the way that you see yourself, right? That's what you need to shift. You need to shift who you are as a person. And then from there, that's where you're going to get the big arms. That's where you're going to get the physique that you actually like. So we're going to split this up into two parts with the arms protocol and what to actually do. We're going to go over training and diet. And also, I mean, if you've gotten to this point, that means that, like, you're ready to fully commit to this. You're ready to become this, like, new version of yourself. Otherwise, like, I'm just going to waste the next 20 minutes of your life. Like, you should probably just click off the video at this point because it's not going to help you, right? So, first things first, we have your training. Couple key things. The first is that you need your mindset, that you need to train your arms like you train your chest. For me, I've always loved training chest. It was like my first love when I started training, right? All I did was just train my bench press. It was my favorite thing to do every single week. And because of that, my chest grew. It was probably my best muscle group for a long time. And it was my strongest muscle group by a long shot, right? I benched 315 way before I squatted 405, way before I pulled 465 on deadlift, right? And I mean, I'm also trying to improve those numbers to match that bench. By no means, I'm not fucking done with that. But it's just kind of to give you some context that, you know, my chest has always been very strong. And it's just because it's been the thing that I've prioritized the most. I've trained it first in the majority of my workouts, and that's led to me getting stronger on bench press, which has led to getting bigger pecs. So you need to train your arms. Instead of them being like an accessory, you need to train them like they are one of your primary muscles. If you're training your arms at the end of all your workouts, like I used to do, like you're going to get stuck with some like noodle arms. No one's going to be able to tell that you lift. The reason why that your arms aren't growing is, again, it's just because you don't train them like you train other muscle groups. Like if you trained your chest the exact same way that most people train their arms, you wouldn't see any growth, right? So that's the first thing, is that you need to train your arms like you train your chest. Now, the second thing that I really want you to focus on is intensity. So many people would just stand there and just, you know, they'll do some bicep curls to mild discomfort. They'll do some tricep pushdowns to mild discomfort. Those sets are fucking useless. If you do 10 sets to mild discomfort, that's not nearly as good as one set all the way to failure. Honestly, I've found that the closer and closer I train to failure, the better and better that my growth gets. Now, I'll also go over the amount of like frequency and volume you want to be using when you're training to failure or very close to it, and how much you should be doing. But the thing is, like, if you're sacrificing your intensity because you want to save more energy for your next sets whenever you're training, that is a telltale sign that you're doing too much volume and you need to reduce it. Your intensity should always be the top priority, and anything that sacrifices that needs to go. Now, you need at least one arm-focused day per week if you want to see them grow. And what I mean by this is that you don't specifically need an arm day, but you need to train them early in the workout. The earlier in the workout that you train something, the more fresh that it is. So the harder you can push it, which leads to more stimulus and XYZ, you get bigger fucking arms, and that's what you want. So you need at least one workout per week where you prioritize them. So if you're doing like push-pull legs, right? Maybe your first push session of the week, you focus on your chest and your shoulders. And now your second one, you start with triceps, right? Same with pull. Maybe you do your biceps earlier in the workout and save your back for later. You need, again, this comes back to the main thing of like, train your arms like you train your chest. When I started training my arms like I trained my chest and I started prioritizing them more, that's when they exploded. That's when I slapped on like 3 more inches onto my arms, right? Now, last but not least, form is so important. What I found that really helps the best is not only finding a very stable exercise, but finding something that I can really connect with the muscle on every single rep and just have good form. The better that your form is, the more growth that you're going to see. From what I've seen in the gym while I train there, most people, their form isn't down, and that's also another thing that's holding them back, right? It doesn't matter how hard you train if you train incorrectly, because you're not going to see the maximum amount of growth that you could see. So it's kind of like, if you're going to be training to failure, you might as well make sure that you train right. So now in terms of exercises for your biceps, I would say you want to just prioritize anything that gives you like stability and a mind-muscle connection. So this is different for everyone. You're going to have to do some experimenting with it and figure out what works best for you. But for me, I really enjoy my incline curls. I love cable curls, some machine preacher curls, and some behind the body curls. These are all variations that I love, that I find like very easy to keep stable. I have a great mind-muscle connection, and I have a very easy time like executing these movements, and they feel quite natural. Now, for you, it might be different, so you need to experiment with this. But ideally, something where you're like sitting down or you can't really use momentum, that's very important. So these are the exercises that I would use for your biceps. Now, in terms of triceps, you want to be able to, again, prioritize the same things as before, as stability and mind-muscle connection. Now, let me put you guys on. JM press is incredible. I found this exercise about 3 months ago, and I gotta say, it's the best tricep exercise that I've ever tried. I used to do a lot of push downs and overhead extensions, but I never really had something where I felt my triceps as much as this. So if you can set up a JM press on a Smith machine, like, you are set. It's gonna be so good. What I like to do is I like to like almost bring the bar down to my Adam's apple and then just push up from there and just really focus on extending my arms. And also when I do bring my arms down, I try and keep my elbows very tucked in so my chest doesn't take over. And I really focus on my form and my mind-muscle connection because it is one of those exercises where your chest can very easily take over if your elbows are a little more flared out. So keep your elbows nice and tucked. Really focus on like getting your arms like this and then just pushing. Next up, we got seated pushdowns or just pushdowns in general. I found that the heavier that you do go on tricep pushdowns, the harder it gets to just stay stable on that exercise and not fucking start like humping the air and swinging the weight. So I found that just doing seated pushdowns, it works a lot better. It does look a little goofy, but trust me, you got to give it a shot. Last but not least, we got overhead extensions. This has been one of my OG exercises that I've done for a very long time. Absolutely love it. These are like my favorite tricep exercise. Now, again, if you have different tricep exercises that you like more, you feel a better mind-muscle connection, you feel like your form is better, and you genuinely feel like it's a better exercise, by all means, go and do that. These are just some like suggestions for you to go play around with. But ideally, we just want something that is stable and that you have a good mind-muscle connection with. And what I mean by stability is that you don't have to focus that much on just like trying to keep your arm in the same spot, right? The thing that I love about the seated pushdown is that I know exactly where my elbows need to be at all times, so I don't really need to focus on stability. I don't need to really focus on like leaning over and keeping my core engaged because I'm laying down, right? Same thing with incline curls. I know exactly where to keep my elbows. I can't swing. There's no momentum. So I keep it very clean. It's just exercises where it makes it easier to execute. Like, you don't need to be doing bicep curls, standing on a Bosu ball on one leg while fucking spinning in circles, right? It's just useless. It's more complication that doesn't help you. You just want to make sure that you're able to push as hard as you can on your exercise. Now, frequency and your programming. So first of all, you need to have 1 day per week where you have your arms first. Right? So that means if you're doing push-pull legs, you should be having triceps first on one of your push days and the same on one of your pull days. I remember one of my friends, he did this exact thing, and I just watched him grow this like incredible, very like symmetrical physique. His growth was off the charts. I always did like the normal like push-pull legs, like save your triceps and biceps or last, and that was the exact reason why they never fucking grew, is because I always put them at the end of a workout, right? So you need to make sure at least 1 day per week that you do have those exercises first. Next up, we have volume versus intensity. What I recommend is that you just take 2 sets and go all the way to failure, right? This has been probably the biggest improvement I've made to my training, where instead of just having to worry about like, oh, I'm doing 3 sets, I got to save some of my energy for the later sets. No, I just go 2 sets and I just go ham. I just keep pulling until I literally cannot move the weight anymore. And that right there has made sure that I push myself to my limits every single time that I train. Because when you try and overcomplicate it, your brain is always going to take the path of least resistance. So if you tell yourself that you're only going to go 3 reps in reserve, your brain's going to say that when you're at 5, 6, 7 reps in reserve. It's going to try and trick you. It's going to try and take the easiest path of resistance. So when you give yourself no other choice but to train to failure, it makes it much easier to just train to failure instead of thinking they're like, oh, maybe I've got 1 more, maybe I got 1 less. No, just go all the way to failure, but do 2 sets. Do 2 sets, right? Because if you're doing 3, 4, 5 sets to failure on every single exercise, you're going to get way too much fatigue for the amount of stimulus that you're getting. So that's where it's kind of the sweet spot between you can train as hard, you can train hard as fuck, but you're still but you're not getting too much fatigue. You want to train your arms 2 times per week. Now, I found that this is the sweet spot because when you start going to like 3 days per week, now it starts interfering with your back training and your chest training, and you start sacrificing these other things for like one more day of training that gives you a little bit more growth. It's a big sacrifice for like just slightly more growth, and in my opinion, it's not worth it. So that is everything in terms of like the exercises, how you should program this. So right now, you should get your split. You should switch things around. So if you're doing like upper lower, have one upper day where you do like mostly like torso. So you're doing like your shoulders, you're doing your chest, you're doing your back first, and you're doing your arms later. And then the other time it should be the other way around, where you're doing your arms first, maybe then some shoulders, and moving on to your chest and back last. All right. So that's how I want you guys to start programming your training. And if you implement this right now into your training, like trust me, you're going to see some good fucking growth. Now, the thing is, training is only one part of the equation. If you don't have your diet down, like you're just going to be training in vain. That is not me on my cut. Holy shit. There we go. That's me on my cut. That looks a lot better. Not so bulked up. So the next thing is that you got to figure out is that are you either going into a bulk or are you going to go into a cut? So me personally, for this transformation, I've been on a bulk. Like if we look at these two pictures right here, there is like a 35-pound difference. I was 165 when I moved to Denmark. Now I'm standing at about 200 pounds. So that's like my waking weight before I've had any water, anything like that. That's also the way that you should be weighing yourself, because if you're weighing yourself when you have food and water in you, you're getting the wrong data, and that's going to lead to you making the wrong decisions. So for your bulk, it's going to be the best tool in your arsenal for building muscle. Now, there's a couple things that you do have to watch out for, is that at a certain point, it doesn't really make sense to bulk anymore, because there's some very important things like insulin sensitivity, which when your body fat goes up, your insulin sensitivity goes down, which leads to you building less muscle. The best range for you to be in is anywhere from about like 10 to 15% body fat. That's like the golden zone for putting on the most amount of muscle and the least amount of fat. Anything over that, and you're going to have a much harder time putting on muscle. Now, also the whole idea of a bulk is that you get more carbs. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen motherfuckers go on a bulk and they dirty bulk, or they eat way too much fucking protein when it's not helping them. The entire point of a bulk is that you're getting more carbs, so it leads to you being able to push harder in your training, right? And then from there, with your heightened recovery, with you getting more carbs, again, because carbs are the most important thing for your recovery. When you go to the gym, you use up all your glycogen, and if you use up, that's basically like the carbs in your system. When you use up all those carbs in your system, your body has two choices. It either takes those carbs from existing stores to restore them, which you don't have after you've trained, which is why you need that post-workout meal to be high in carbs, or it just takes it from your muscle, right? So you have to choose. Do I want to lose muscle, or do I just want to lose some or do I just want to eat a post-workout meal? Those are kind of the two places that you can take it from. So that's why carbs is basically the most important thing. It's just it leads to you having better recovery, and it leads to you having better training. That's why in a cut, most people have such a hard time with training, with pushing hard. It's because they're eating less carbs. Now, last but not least, we have a caloric surplus. Now, you want to be eating in a 300 to 500 calorie surplus. Anything below that, and like you could literally just miss your calories one day because you got a little too many steps, right? It's like you're getting too close. You got to remember that you don't live in a science experiment, that you've also got other things going on in your life. And when you cut it closer and closer to that line where you're doing a 100 to 200 calorie surplus, like if you got an extra like 500 to 1,000 steps that day, you just torch those calories. And then you're not in a bulk anymore. Now you're maintaining, or you might even be cutting. So that's why when you're in a 300 to 500 calorie surplus, it's so much easier to hit your calories, to make sure that you gain weight. Now, is it as optimal as the other ones? No, but we also have to be realistic. We have to remember that we're not in a fucking science experiment, that it still needs to work. And that's why 300 to 500 calorie surplus is the sweet spot. Next up, we've got the cut. Now, you should only really cut if it is absolutely necessary. This was me on my cut back in August. I was quite lean. I had some decent veins. I had my six-pack was way better. Like if we're looking at this over here, like I'm a lot more chunky here, right? You can tell I've put on a little bit of fat, but I've also put on a lot of size. Now you should only really be cutting if necessary. If you do want to get bigger arms, like bulking is going to be your best fucking friend. Just put on a lot of weight, do it over a long amount of time, and just put on a shit ton of muscle. Now, the thing with your cut is that you should never, ever be sacrificing your gym performance, because that means you're losing muscle, right? If you're losing strength, you're losing muscle. That means you can't push as hard, and that just leads you down a spiral where you lose the thing that you want the most, which is the muscle, right? So on your cut, you should still be able to get stronger and progressively overload and still push yourself hard in your training. Thing is, if you're not at least maintaining on your cut, that means your caloric deficit is too high, or you're fucking up your meal timings. Now, with your deficit, you should be in a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit. And in terms of your meal timing, you want to make sure that your pre and post workout meal are high in carbs. So I remember when I went on a 25-pound cut and lost like 25 pounds over the course of 4 months, the main thing that I did to make sure that my training didn't take a huge hit was I would kind of just like eat protein in the morning, just have like a high protein breakfast, like 6 eggs or a protein shake. That would kind of keep me full until like 1 or 2, where I'd have my first real meal of the day. And then after that, I would have my post-workout meal, which was very high in carbs. From there, I would go train. And then after that, I would have a high carb meal. I would kind of save my carbs for later in the day for when I was going to train. So that's kind of how you cut. Very like simple, basic version. I did make a 40-minute video on like how I actually went about my cut, how to execute on it, everything like that. So if you want to go find that, that's on my channel somewhere. But yeah, let's move on. So what makes all of this possible is the 3-2-0 system. The 3-2-0 system is 3 to 5 recipes, meal prepping 2 times per week, and having a zero junk food environment. This is genuinely the most brain dead and easy way to put on muscle. And it's a system that I developed last year where, you know, I was busy, I was working, I was doing about 8 hours a day of cold calling, and I was managing a couple clients at the time. I was still able to spend about 3 to 4 hours a day just like scrolling on Instagram, being an absolute idiot. But because I had this very simple system in place, it basically made it so I didn't have to use that much discipline to show up. And whenever you can get discipline out of the equation and make it easy to perform, that's exactly what you should do. Because the thing is, there is nothing morally better or cooler if you're just trying harder at something that doesn't work. If you have to drive 40 miles, some people would just say like, oh yeah, but it's healthier to run it, right? But that would take you literal days and it would just exhaust you a shit ton, and it's not fucking worth it. In that case, it's just much better to just drive the 40 miles instead of just running it, using up all your energy, all your time, just because, oh, it's just slightly better for me, bro. I'm just using some discipline. It's just retarded at that point, right? There is a time and a place where you can work hard. If you shouldn't only just be working hard, you should also be working smart. So that's where the 3-2-0 system comes in. So the clarity that you give yourself creates action. When you have these big goals that you're trying to achieve, these things that you want to get, you need to give yourself clarity on it. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you'll just keep procrastinating. And you'll keep not staying consistent with the thing that you need to stay consistent with. If you don't know what to stay consistent with, you can't be consistent at all, right? The same way that you don't train without a split, you shouldn't be eating without a plan. So this is why you need to find recipes that fit your calories and your macros perfectly, so you know exactly what to execute on. Because if you don't have any clarity, you can try and muscle it, but again, it's like you're trying to beat an F1 car in a foot race. It's never going to happen, right? Just find those recipes, give yourself the clarity, and you'll find that execution is like 100 times easier. Now, the second thing is that you need to meal prep twice per week. This is just front loading all the work and lowering the bar so much that you just have to increase your standards a little bit. Like, the only thing you have to do when you meal prep is literally just not eat off plan, and you already have all the food in your fridge. Like, if I was to show you my fridge right now, it's literally just white monsters, and it's meal prep. There's nothing else in there, right? So that makes it so fucking easy for me to stick to it, instead of, like, you know, coming home from an 11-hour shift, and now I gotta cook food because I didn't meal prep in advance. Genuinely, the easiest fucking way to do it is just cook your meals twice a week, so that I was able to basically be, like, a bit lazy but hardworking enough so I could still get all my calories in and not really have to worry too much about it. Now, last but not least, we have a zero junk food environment. Now, food is always going to settle to room temperature. The reason why is because you'll always become like your environment. Just like how the food is going to cool down in that cooler environment, the same thing is going to happen to your discipline. The same thing is going to happen to your standards with the same environment that you're in. And there's nothing that's going to hold you back more than having these temptations around you 24/7, right? Again, it's another thing of like, oh, I have temptations in my fridge. I'm being so disciplined by not giving into them. It's like, yeah, you could also just fucking throw out the food and make it way easier for yourself. Like, if we can make it easier for ourselves, why the fuck don't we do it, right? There is no glory in fighting a useless battle. There isn't. And plus, most of the time, the people that say these things, they don't even get the fucking results that they claim that they're getting from this extra discipline, because they usually just give into it. So make sure that your environment is as supportive as possible with eliminating all the junk food. The reason why I was able to go from being like a complete fucking sugar addict to eating completely clean, like all I eat is like beef, eggs, rice, and vegetables, is simply just because I threw all of it away and I never buy any anymore. It's way easier to just resist for like 10, 20 minutes when I'm shopping for food in the grocery store instead of like 24/7, right? And all of this doesn't work if you don't track everything. You can use the 3-2-0 system, all that shit. It's not going to fucking work if you don't track your food, if you don't track your weight and your morning, most importantly, your morning weight and your workouts, right? If you don't track everything, you're not going to be able to improve anything. Your arms are going to remain the same. Your physique's going to remain the same. Nothing's going to change. And I remember when I started tracking my calories, that's when my physique blew up, right? I didn't track before. I just told myself, oh, I'm going to eat more. I'm going to bulk by eating more. And it never fucking worked, right? And that was simply just because I was being lazy. And I couldn't improve what I didn't know I needed to improve on. So, boys, that is everything on exactly how you can build some nice beefy arms, how you can slap on a good amount of muscle. So I really hope you guys found some value in this. Drop me a comment. Let me know what kind of video videos you guys want to see in the future. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, boys, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. You can also check out my Instagram. I'm showing you guys exactly what I'm doing every single day to put on more muscle, to build my mindset, to build new habits, all sorts of shit like that. So if you want to follow along in my personal journey to bulking up, to getting way stronger, to getting way more disciplined, to just like building a new and better life for myself, you guys are always welcome to watch me on Instagram. So I love you, boys. Take care.